Chicago
Greetings,
always had
TikTok
dark
family.
energy.
You know, I've been doing some research on Chicago because I was curious. You know, Chicago has a very high crime rate, and I was just curious. You know, why is there so much dark energy surrounding this town? So I did some research, and I found a pretty decent rabbit hole that I want to share with you guys on the city of Chicago. Because, you know, energy cannot be destroyed; it can only be transferred. So the darkness surrounding Chicago has been around a lot longer than a lot of people think. It goes past Chirac. It was before that. So let's talk about it. So let's start. Chicago was founded by Jean-Baptiste Dupont Sable, which was a black man. And there is a suggestion saying that this man was a voodoo man. He was into voodoo and African spirituality. And there is nothing wrong with that. But you know, a lot of the times I've noticed in America, when you have voodoo mentioned and it's like a popular person, especially a black person, it's usually in a negative connotation. Usually when they bring up the fact that somebody practices voodoo here, it's usually the darker aspects of voodoo. Because it's light spirituality and it's dark spirituality. And that's a whole nother topic, but let's start there. Okay, so you got a voodoo witch doctor that started the whole city. If you don't know, Chicago was built on water. Most rituals that take place in like occult circles, they always involve water. So this town is founded by a voodoo man and is built on top of water, but it gets crazier. Anton LaVey, you know, the man who founded the Church of Satan, he was from Chicago and he founded it in Chicago. Okay, that's nothing too crazy, I guess. So now we have gangs, and if you don't know about GDs, which are, I've heard gangster disciples, I've heard God's disciples. Anyways, GDs, they use the 6-pointed star. This thing right here, the same thing the Jews use. Okay, I was watching a documentary on Freemasonry, and I came across something very weird. They talked about Chicago and the Prince Hall. Just so you know, there is a difference from, in most cases, black Freemasons and white Freemasons. Because at the time when Freemasonry was really popular, black people here weren't free. So they couldn't be Freemasons. So they started the Prince Hall Lodge. That's why if you have many black Freemasons that you know, they're probably part of the Prince Hall Lodge. Not saying that they can't be a Freemason now, but I've noticed at least a lot of the black Freemasons that I know are Prince Hall Masons. They're not Grand Lodge Freemasons. It's a difference. It's segregated. I don't know if it's still segregated because I'm not a Mason, but my grandfather is a Mason. He's a high-ranking Mason, and he was telling me about the segregation. So, okay, I don't want to get too far off topic, so let's continue. Now, I don't know the exact name of this building. If you're from Chicago and you're watching this, tag the building if you know what I'm talking about. So you have Freemasons and you have a gang known as GDs. They used the same building to carry out their functions back in the day. I think this was like the 60s and the 70s. Now, you don't know how weird that is? Like, think about it. You got gang members sharing a building with spiritual practitioners that do rituals and stuff. That don't sound weird to you? But then you think about it even more, you know, they share the same symbol just about. The Freemason logo is literally a 6-pointed star. You just gotta really look at it. Anyways, aside from that, you know, Freemasons are known for their spiritual practices, their spiritual mastery. You know, they are very in depth with spirituality, all kinds of forms of spirituality. But a lot of the times I've found that it's a lot of darker aspects of it. Not saying everybody that's a Mason practices dark spirituality, but I've found a lot that do. My grandfather was into voodoo. He still is to this day. He's like 80 something. So don't tell me that Masons don't do that, because they do. And just so you know the gang signs that they like to throw up, those can be interpreted as mudras, which is a Hindu form of spirituality. It is hand signatures to create certain types of energies and states of consciousness. I'm just saying, if they're sharing a building with people that know stuff about this, it would make sense to where the whole hand gestures even started from. I'm not saying that's the case, but that sounds like that's probably the case. The whole reason that they chose to use the 6-pointed star, you look at almost all the famous rappers out of Chicago, they are associated with the GDs. I'm just saying, like, it's kind of weird, something not adding up. And in the Grand Lodge, which is white masonry, there are a lot of high-ranking elite people in that type of Freemasonry. And it is a fact that illegal guns and drugs were sold to the Chicago low-income communities through our government. A lot of people that are part of the Grand Lodge, which is white masonry, are part of the CIA and the FBI, the same people that sold drugs to the community of Chicago. So then I was thinking, okay, and I don't want to go too far off topic, I'm not trying to confuse anybody, but there is a group known as the Boule. The Boule is basically Prince Hall Masons, black Masons, but they're the high-ranking celebrity status ones. And they have a tendency to go and work with Freemasons. Like, they're cool with the elite, basically. They're cool because, you know, once you become the elite, your race don't matter. You can be dark as the night or white as a cloud. If you're part of that elite group of people, your race don't matter because it's about money and bloodlines. So I can see it as a possibility that, you know, the Boule, the black Masons, they allowed the Grand Lodge and the CIA to sell these drugs and guns. And that's why Chicago is in the state it is today. They throwing up all these energy hand gestures and all of this craziness is happening because they don't realize that they are literally casting spells with those hand gestures. Not blaming the hand gestures alone. You know, it's a lot of misguided youth out there. But I'm just wondering, do you think this could be a possibility to why there is so much dark energy behind the city? Yeah. Now, just for the record, I do not live in Chicago. I've never been to Chicago, but I do plan on visiting Chicago. So if I miss something or leave something out, please, all my Chicago natives, let me know, because I've never been there before. This is just what I found doing research.